Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So this is going to be part 10 of the tiny build house, and in this video is all about plastering. So mainly the ceiling and the wall, the plywoods basically, so we can just drill it in since all the concrete wall needs to be glued in or with an aggressive or a cement. So with that, we're going to use a different type of plasterboard. So it would be insulated plasterboard. So that will be insulation at the back with the plasterboard on the front kind of thing. Whereas here it's just straight plasterboard. So I believe this is a 12mm plasterboard, and we will be using a 60mm plaster screw to drill it in kind of thing. And as you can see, the wiring has been done in the last video in part 9, so it will be a lot easier to cut the holes and send the wire through. So as you can see, it's like a 4x4 light setup for this main room area. So altogether it will be 16 lights, I believe. Yeah, 16 lights. And I could just cut the hole and just fit it in, so it's easier. So once this is done, then we can just do the skimming and the paint and connect the lights all to it, so it's easier. Is making sure that all the plasterboards are aligned and getting the wire through the hole, because when you push it up you can't see, and sometimes it gets stuck with the actual beam at the top of all of the wooden beams. So just trying to get that through the hole, and once that's done, it aligns perfectly. Then we just hold that up tight and just scraping some of the sides so it fits in, especially with the concrete edges kind of thing, because the rock, when you're doing the blocks, the rocks aren't always perfectly aligned. And just adding screws like every 30 centimeters or something, or 60, I believe, 60 centimeter, so it does stay kind of thing. Because the thing is, the whole plasterboard is held by the screws. So just make sure that you do screw enough, and I believe the range should be like 40 to 50 centimeter, every 40 to 50 centimeter, just screw it, like add a screw kind of thing. And to make it easier, since it is like an open space, we did get the biggest plasterboard. So this is like 1.2 meter by 2.4 meters, so it could cover most of the area with few boards, rather than getting the smaller ones, because that would just be annoying. And when you're skimming as well, when there's less joints, it's easier to skim. Also, when you're putting the plasterboard to the ceiling, make sure it's the end of one side isn't in the middle of two of the beams. Make sure it's in half of the wooden beam, so that you could screw the edge with that beam, and the new one will connect to the half of the existing wooden beam and continues basically, so it doesn't just levitate in the gap between the beams, also where the insulation is at. So this is a repetitive process kind of thing. I'm just measuring and just like cutting the plasterboard to size and just installing kind of thing. I know some people like to use the kite knife to cut it across. I wasn't a big fan, since it feels like I didn't have control, so I did use the saw. But if you guys have confidence, you can just do it. Then just securing everything in place kind of thing. Because of the camera angle, it does look a bit off, but like everything is balanced. So as you can see here, like it is evenly spread out. Like the four lights are, like the gaps between the four lights makes sense. But in a sense that you get the whole width of that place and divide it by 5 in a sense, right? So you get the space in between for the four lights. So the idea is that all the wooden wall and the ceilings will be covered. That's the idea in this video kind of thing. And the problem is a lot of wires. So this is where the main unit goes, which will control the power for this tiny house. Now it's just to do it the other side. So now half of the ceiling has been plastered. This is the second half for the main room. So that tower of like light you can see, or the wires you can see, is connecting the wire light as what led to the main power current as well. So that's basically the life unit, and all the lights are spreading from that. So the light to the main room, the kitchen area, and the bottom will be going from that live current. And since there's like a big bulk of wire, it's hard to get it. And the problem is this is a big board. It does kind of get stuck in the middle beam. So you just have to make sure it's correctly in. So it's also, before you cut the hole for the, like in this room, it's going to be spotlights. So before you do cut it, make sure you are using the right diameter for the circle cutter as recommended for the spotlights, because some of the covers, like the actual container for the spotlight is same, but the actual outer cover for where it rests with the spring mechanism could be thinner or like bigger depending on your preferences. And when you're getting it thinner, like the recommended size is a bit less than when you're getting it with the thicker outer ring. Also, I know some people do it with I just measure everything, since like it is my first I'm new to this, and like I'm not a proper builder, and like my actual profession isn't building, so this is a hobby, right? But like I was like, let's just do something during COVID because there's nothing else, we're in lockdown, so it's like might as well. Yeah, also like I tried doing everything like tight fit, so there is less like skimming thing you have to do, or like it's just make it easier when you're skimming in a sense. And yeah, also another thing I noticed, like they do sell like the plasterboard and the screws in like a pack of 1,000, and I was surprised like why do you need so many, but it does take a lot of screws. Like it just gets eaten up, and especially with this thing, it's like a 30-meter squared area in a sense, right? So just 1/4 or like one section is left. Also, another thing is the thing that we use to make like the circles or the circle hole is annoying, because like it always gets stuck. So every time you do one, like so once you draw the one circle, like I had to take the whole mechanism apart to take the inside or like the waste product, and I think it just doesn't come out easily, so, which is annoying, but hey ho. At least the ceiling is done. Now, like the ceiling is the annoying part, since you're all like, you have to tilt your like neck perpendicular, like, or your head perpendicular to your body, and it just gets a bit straining. Whereas if it's the wall, you're just facing like parallel to the wall, right? So you can just go through and your neck doesn't hurt as much. Yeah, so we just missed the wiring for the switch, so just quickly putting that through, and yeah, drilling the final piece of the ceiling for the main area. Now we're just gonna do the same for the wall, so like for the plywooded wall kind of thing. Since you can't skim on the plywood, and so we just need to plaster that either way. And rather than adding any insulated thing, since there's already a wall in the middle, it doesn't have direct contact with the outside area, so the cold won't be like affected in a sense. So we can just use a normal standard plaster board and just screw it in. And the way we did it is because since we want the plaster board to hold the wall plaster board to hold the ceiling plaster board. So if, let's say, if the edge does get weaker or something, it could hold that plasterboard so the ceiling plasterboard is leaning on top of that wall plasterboard. So in a sense, it does aid it and gives it an extra support in a sense, rather than doing it the other way around. So rather than doing the wall plasterboard first, then the ceiling, we just did the ceiling one first, then the wall, so it does hold it in place. And especially with the gravity, the way it has, like, there's more strain on the ceiling plasterboard than the plasterboard on the wall. So now, like, the main area of that wall is done. Now we just had to do it around the door frames. Now just basically adding it to the both side of the wall, and now it's just the middle section to cover. So the switch in front of that that's the bottom entrance, and the switch controls the fan and also a main switch just in case if there's anything happens, right? So it's like an electrical switch. So if there's water or something that gets into the electric, it automatically turns off at that switch kind of thing. So it's easier to have like a module system rather than having everything controlled by one main unit. But that current is still coming from the main, so it's just like another stoppage thing. So now just building it around the edges to create like the box effect. So just measuring and just drilling in. So luckily the plywood is on that side, like you can see the plywood sheet, right? And the plywood was, I believe it was 24 millimeters. So it does have a thickness of 2.4 centimeters. So you could just drill it to that kind of thing. And now the main area is done. So like the light, like even since the plasterboard is white, like you could see the amount of, like just the whole room just lit up kind of in a sense. So like paint does make a difference, and like the whole room does, it just seems a lot brighter than before when it was this grey, like woody kind of thing. So yeah, as you can see, all the lights are evenly spread out into like a 16 light module control. So it's going to be, I believe it's going to be like an outer light and like inside light as well. So a perimeter of that 16 was a 4x4 system will be like one, it will be controlled by one light switch, and all the interior light will be controlled by another thing. So in a sense that when you're just working on like when you're using an area just on the outside or the perimeter of that common room, you could just turn on the outer lights rather than the inside light, or like the main light or the middle light, just power efficiency. Because like rather than turning on every light when you're just doing one task in one specific corner or something, because it is a big ass like room. I don't think the camera does justice since it is kind of narrowed and like warped into it. So now I'm just finishing off the last set of door frames, or like plastering the box around the door frame. So this will be the kitchen area. So now we're just installing the extractor fan thing, or like the way where the waste goes, before we do put the thing on the plasterboard. So this is the room beforehand. So it would just be the two walls as well as the ceiling of this room. So from the plasterboard, I have added 3 lights hole, as well as the extractor fan hole as well, where the aluminium foil will go through. So in a sense, that's where the hood for the hub will be sitting. So as you can see, there is a gap on like the corner of that ceiling, right? So it's the gap between the wall and the ceiling, or in that corner. Like it shouldn't be too bad, since there's gonna be plasterboard on top, like on top of the wall as well, on top of the plywood, so it should cover it in a sense. Okay, it's just that it wasn't straight. It was like, it's not just perfectly straight, right? Perfectly aligned. So as you can see, like there is no, the problem with this is like there's no beam in the, on the edge or where the interior walls are. So like the wall on the side, or pushing it with the plasterboard with the wall, helps since it is leaning on that in a sense, since there isn't any beam at the top to screw in using a, like using a screw basically. There isn't anything to hold it in place. So that's used to lever it so it doesn't break once I'm just doing it on one side. So that's why that we're screwed on that plasterboard, and I just finished screwing in the actual ceilings as well. Now it's just measuring and cutting it into piece and just doing it, right? So in a sense, I think in the end the kitchen will have like 6 lights, I believe. Yeah, so it would just be a 2x or 3x2 system. Now the kitchen area isn't too bad since it is small, but it is annoying since not many people could fit in there. But it's pretty big, like in a sense. I think it's still like the width wise, it's still like over 2 meters, I believe. So just now just doing the walls. Because in a sense, the area of the ceiling has reduced, but the wall is still the same as the common area. Since the area of the wall is still the same. Or more, in a sense. Okay, we have an L-shaped wall in there. Also, another tip is like when I'm like, I don't know if you guys want to use it or not, but the one I use is like when I am cutting like a long piece of plaster board or something or anything, because especially with this, it's like 2.4 meters. It's pretty long to follow it if you just draw a straight line, or you just have to require lots of concentration. So the one I use is get like a straight piece of like wood or like something that's straight and also strong, and just clamp it to where the line should be and just run the saw across that. So using that as like a line or like an aid to help me line it in a sense. So just doing the last bit of the ceiling, and also just the L for the from the door side, right? Like another thing is like there's like a metal L thing that you have to attach from the brick to the wooden stud or like the roof stud. So that also gets like in the way. So that's why we kind of have to smooth that out in the edge of that plasterboard so it does sit perfectly or sit flush. in the end issue, everything would be covered when we add the insulated plasterboard to the actual wall, or like the brick wall. Now just cleaning out the space for the sockets. So in this case, I just made a hole for the wire to go through. Then we just run the knife across, since we do have a plywood that makes like the actual circumference of the box. So there isn't any point wasting time to remeasure it in a sense. So now the kitchen area is basically done. And like, even though there's no light, it does seem a lot brighter. And like the white color does make it look so much better. So I have added the metal L shape for all the corners there when you're for skimming and stuff. So yeah, that's it. Hope you enjoy. So until part 11, I believe, and see you next time. Bye.